Greetings, dear autosportsmen. Finally F1 is back, and we finally saw those beautiful F1 cars in full attack mode. No sandbagging, no moving under the curtains, and the result is quite unexpected. And in this analytical review, I'll try to be objective and give you the most valuable information. Let's go! Okay, let's start with the weekend preview and talk a little bit about Bahrain and track itself. Bahrain International Circuit is known to be a well-balanced track. It has everything. It has low-speed corners here, here and here. It has medium-speed corners here, here, here and here. Also, it has some fast corners like here. 12 is a fast corner, and also turns 2 and 3 can be named as fast corners, but as they are a part of the whole section that starts with a slow corner, it doesn't mean much. And finally, Bahrain also has quite a lot of straights. So if you look on the color mixture on your screen, you can see the track is really balanced. That's why it's widely used for F1 testing, especially lately. And also, this track can produce quite astonishing races. GP used to take place at daytime, but moving the race towards the night was a perfect decision. First of all, conditions are more suitable for racing, cause air temperatures are a bit lower, and in terms of time it becomes more synchronized with European time. So this is it for track analysis. Now let's go on. Moving to a tire analysis. This year, tire situation is a bit different, because now we have not 5 but 6 tire compounds, starting from C0 and ending at C5. So compound choice lean towards the harder end of a spectrum, but we still do not see C0. Also, as I told you in my testing review video, tire compounds changed quite a bit, and the main focus point of Pirelli was to get rid of understeer. And as far as I can see, and overall car balance looks neutral now, and sometimes even a little bit oversteering. Also, if we have a look on the Pirelli metrics, we'll see quite high asphalt abrasion, and it is one of the main reasons for quite hard tires, and of course high track evolution and high overall temperatures also play their part. Now let's proceed to the main talking point before the qualification has started. Will Lance Stroll take part in a quali? Will Lance Stroll take part in a race? Someone suppose that it is too early for him to go racing, and as we clearly saw in FP2, Stroll struggles quite a bit with his right wrist. Moreover, he had to do that special Robert Kubica move with changing the grip of the steering wheel with one of his hands. It occurred during some long runs, long stints, so while it may look like Stroll didn't have any troubles during qualification, he still might have some problems during the race. Moreover, we can speak about some safety validation, and the discussion will be quite similar to Robert Kubica discussion back in the days when people were arguing. May his driving be dangerous to himself and other drivers? From this perspective, Lance Stroll may be even more dangerous, because Lance is not used to his injury. Well, of course, his injury is not so harsh, and maybe skipping first race for better healing, for avoidance of the risk of getting some permanent injuries, maybe this idea was not bad, but we will see. Now, let's talk about Q1, and Q1 was an extremely close session. The gap is under 1.2 seconds between last and the first place. What an incredible stuff. The first conclusion from the session is that the midfield pack is so stacked as it has never been. 6 teams: Haas, AlphaTauri, Williams, Alfa Romeo, Alpine and McLaren. Moreover, from those two results, we may assume that McLaren is the weakest team in terms of speed now. Even in previous year, McLaren did start it badly, but back there it was mainly due to Mercedes engines. But now it is completely their fault. All 3 rookies was knocked out in Q1 and were out-qualified by their teammates. Now, Mercedes, particularly George Russell, showed quite a surprising tempo, and Red Bull also made quite a surprise due to the fact of how low they finished. But as I said already, the pack was stacked really closely. Carlos Sainz made quite a good performance and saved his tires, but the funniest thing in this session was that Ferrari started to crumble already in the first session of new season. And I mean it, they literally started to crumble physically. Charles Leclerc lost 2 parts of his floor, which should really hurt his performance in the whole remaining quali. We even saw a red flags due to it. Carlos Sainz also struggled, but he struggled with bottoming on the curbs, which led to some oversteer events. So yeah, session was quite interesting, but let's go on. The topic of track limits arises once again. Lance Stroll managed to exceed them in turn 13, which is quite rare. Also, Alex Albon really struggled with the understeer in the exit of turn 4, and if in Q1 it didn't lead to the time being deleted. But if you ask me, I think that it's clear that he has exceeded the limits at this screenshot. Nevertheless, it ruined his whole Q2. He ruined his only fast lap in Q2 and didn't manage to put any time at all. Now, moving towards Q2, we see that things in top 6 at least shaked quite a bit. From the first glance, things didn't move enough in top 7, only Red Bull made the way up, but it's a false impression. Both Red Bulls managed to put their times in the first lap and decided to save an extra tire compound. Why both Ferraris have completely failed? The first attempts, but scored quite a good time on the second attempts, and a complete opposite situation with both Mercedes. So yeah, it was quite a shake-up. Fernando Alonso started to fall down a bit. Also an impressive performance by Nico Hülkenberg, who managed to find his way towards Q3 after a 3-year layout, while Kevin Magnussen was eliminated in Q1. A nice performance from Esteban Ocon, considering the fact that Alpine seems to look quite weak, and Lando Norris nearly putted his McLaren in Q3. Now, moving on to Q3, and that's where the truth was revealed. The truth of Red Bull still being on top. In fact, we see quite a logical sequence of cars, with Alonso and both Mercedes putting some really close times, and Mercedes used to cry a bit that they are even further than they were in previous year, but if we compare this gap to the previous year, Lewis Hamilton has actually gained 4 thousandths of a second. So I guess we can call it a progress. Now, Lance Stroll is actually quite close to Fernando, consider the fact that he is injured. Nico Hülkenberg got his only time deleted, and we actually saw quite a surprising Q3. It was surprising because only 4 drivers, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll, managed to do 2 attempts. Charles Leclerc refused to make a second attempt, but Carlos Sainz had 1 more tire compound due to the Q1. Nico, Esteban, Lewis, George and Fernando have done only 1 attempt, so we've got the remaining drivers. But both Max and Sergio could afford it because they also had an extra compound, and Lance Stroll will face a disadvantage in tomorrow's race by having less amount of fresh tire compounds. So, what conclusion we may draw from it? Well, if everyone could do 2 attempts, maybe the results would be closer, and we can potentially see 3.5 teams fighting for the win. But this prediction is quite optimistic. Red Bull still looks really strong. Moreover, Sergio Perez told in his post-race interview that the setup is targeted not towards the qualification but towards the race. Quite a demotivating fact. Now, the most interesting thing, let's compare the telemetry of Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. Also, you may see that Red Bull has looked quite faster during the whole quali, but Q3 is represented in these laps and this 1 lap. So, to be more precise, we will compare first attempts in Q3, but not the fastest lap of Max. And let's go to comparison. What we see here. It is literally a complete opposite of power balance from previous year. Ferrari is dominating in terms of top speed. Red Bull has an advantage in the corners. Quite an interesting and an impressive picture. But now let's go in details. Let's open the first corner and we see a Ferrari advantage in top speed. Not as huge as it was in preseason testing, but still quite significant. Also, Max Verstappen starting to brake really earlier, but the most interesting part comes in here. Red Bull is again winning in the latter stage of the braking. I told you about that in my video analysis of preseason testing. I told you about that in my short video from yesterday. And it's quite a significant win. They win 0.3 of a second in one corner in half of the braking zone. It is quite ridiculous. And it might tell us that in terms of chassis, in terms of mechanical grip, Red Bull just dominates. If we open the second corner, we will see the exact same thing. Second half of braking, Red Bull is winning. First half of braking, Ferrari is winning. Moreover, I see that Verstappen drops the throttle quite early, and this time Red Bull is gaining in the exit of the corner. A huge gain was made in turn 13. Let's have a look. 1.5 tenths of a second during the braking phase, and this braking is quite tricky because it's done on the turned wheel. And here we again may see that in terms of chassis, maybe in terms of car balance, Red Bull is quite dominant. So, proceeding to the quali result, to the race prediction, I must say the situation is quite confusing. But let's start with some good news. Mid-pack is extremely stacked. 6 teams as close to one another as it can be. Aston Martin landed exactly where it was predicted. They are the best of the rest. They may put on some fight on Mercedes, but the pace may be not enough to fight Ferrari or Red Bull. Now, turning to the main question. How easy will it be for Red Bull to win this championship? If you remember the previous season, Red Bull was dominant because they had the best race car, not the best quali car. In fact, Ferrari hold the most amount of pole positions, but especially in the second half of the year they couldn't bring any fight to Red Bull. Why was it the case? Because Red Bull had A, dominant race pace, B, the best top speed. Now combine these two factors with the fact that Max Verstappen is in the car and will fight for each and every position he can. It is an unbeatable combo, but this year it might take some damage. As we just saw, Red Bull lost all its dominance in terms of top speed, and this may present some chances to Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. By the way, if you didn't see, have a look at my first video on the channel with a complete breakdown of Charles Leclerc driving style. But the top speed of Ferrari is the only hope of Ferrari fans and all neutral fans, because all other facts tell us that the race and maybe the whole season will be quite easy for Red Bull. If a race-heavy, race-focused car locks down the front row, it is a bad news for everyone except this exact car. But let's wait and see. So guys, this is it. It was the first review of the first qualification of our new season. I hope you really liked it. Please subscribe to the channel, watch my previous videos if you haven't seen those, type the comments if you agree, if you disagree with something, and stay in tuned for further contact with some nasty in-depth analytics. Set and go.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey.